The massive alien ship appeared in Earth's sky like a dark cloud blocking the sun. It was bigger than any city, its surface covered in strange lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the Space Station New Geneva, watching as more ships materialized around Earth. Each one could destroy a continent with ease. "How many are there now?" asked diplomat Marcus Webb, his voice tight with worry. 47, Chen replied, her eyes never leaving the alien fleet. "And they're still coming." The aliens called themselves the Galactic Council. They claimed to rule 847 different species across the galaxy. Humanity had just invented faster-than-light travel 6 months ago. Their first voyage to another star had lasted 3 weeks and nearly killed the crew. These aliens traveled between galaxies like humans drove to work. Ambassador Zethrix of the Kalthani Empire stood 8 feet tall with blue-black skin that seemed to absorb light. His 4 arms moved in graceful patterns as he spoke, and his voice sounded like music played through broken glass. He had arrived on New Geneva 3 hours ago with his delegation of 12 other alien species. "Your species is young," Zethrix said, looking down at the human representatives. "You have primitive technology. Your weapons are crude. Your ships are slow. But you have something we need." Chen kept her face blank, even though her heart was racing. She had spent 20 years in the military, fighting wars on 3 different continents. She knew the look of a predator studying its prey. "What do you want from us?" "Your people," Zethrix replied simply. "Earth has 7 billion humans. We require 5.5 billion of them for labor redistribution across Council territories. The remaining population will be relocated to designated preservation zones." The words hit the human delegation like physical blows. Webb actually staggered back a step. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's top xenobiologist, made a small choking sound. Only Chen remained steady, though her hands clenched into fists behind her back. "Labor redistribution," Chen repeated slowly. "You mean slavery?" One of the other aliens, a creature that looked like a walking tree made of crystal, made a sound like wind chimes. "Such crude terminology. Council species do not practice slavery. We practice efficient resource allocation. Your species will be fed, housed, and given meaningful work across our territories." "And if we refuse?" Webb asked, though his voice cracked on the words. Zethrix's equivalent of a smile was terrifying. His mouth opened to reveal rows of teeth like black diamonds. "Refusal is not recommended. We have relocated 313 species in the past 10,000 years. Only 17 chose to resist. None of those species exist today." The alien pulled out a device that projected a hologram in the center of the room. It showed a planet covered in green forests and blue oceans. Then the image changed. The planet became a ball of molten rock, its surface cracked and glowing. Cities burned, oceans boiled away. Nothing lived. "The Korthani were a proud warrior race," Zethrix explained. "They had faster ships than yours, better weapons. They ruled 43 star systems. They chose to fight us." He waved a hand, and the hologram disappeared. "Now their homeworld is a mining operation. We extract rare metals from what used to be their civilization." Dr. Vasquez was studying readings on her tablet, her face pale but focused. Chen knew Elena well enough to recognize that look. The scientist was analyzing everything about these aliens, their biology, their technology, their weaknesses. Elena had worked on biological weapons before joining the xenobiology team. Old habits died hard. "You're giving us a choice that isn't really a choice," Chen said. "Correct," Zethrix replied. "We are being generous by offering terms at all. Most species are simply taken without negotiation. Your primitive status amuses us. Consider it. Professional courtesy between warriors." Webb stepped forward. "We need time to consider your offer. 7 days." Several of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter, the crystal tree being chimed like broken bells. A creature that looked like a giant slug covered in eyes made a wet gurgling noise. 7 days? Zethrix seemed genuinely surprised. Most species surrender within hours once they understand their situation. The longest any species has ever requested was 36 hours. The Vraxian Empire was considered remarkably stubborn for asking for that much time. "We're not most species," Chen said quietly. "No," Zethrix agreed, studying her with 4 bright yellow eyes. "You are not." "Very well. You have 7 of your planetary rotations. We will remain in orbit and await your decision. Choose wisely, Admiral Chen. The alternative to surrender is extinction." After the aliens left, the human delegation sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Finally, Webb spoke. 5.5 billion people. They want to take 5.5 billion people. "They want to take our entire species," Chen corrected. "The survivors would be pets in a zoo." Dr. Vasquez was still studying her tablet. "I recorded everything," she said. "Their biosignatures, their technology readings, even air samples from their breathing apparatus. We need to get this data to Earth immediately." "What good will that do?" Webb asked. "You heard them. They've destroyed hundreds of civilizations. They have weapons we can't imagine. Our best warships are like rowboats compared to their fleet." Chen stood up and walked to the viewport. Outside, the alien ships hung in space like dark stars. Each one carried enough firepower to crack Earth's crust, but something about this situation felt wrong to her. Not wrong like a trap, wrong like a puzzle with missing pieces. "They're being too nice," she said finally. "Nice?" Webb stared at her. "They just threatened to enslave our entire species." "Exactly. They threatened us. They gave us time to think. They explained their terms instead of just taking what they wanted." Chen turned back to face the room. "Elena, you said they have 17 extinct species on their record. How many times do you think they've had to completely destroy a civilization?" Dr. Vasquez looked up from her tablet. "If they've relocated 314 species total and only 17 resisted, that means the other 297 surrendered without fighting." "Right. So why go through this whole diplomatic process with us? Why not just start bombing cities until we give up? They obviously have the power." Webb frowned. "Maybe they prefer not to damage the merchandise. Or maybe," Chen said slowly, "they're not as strong as they want us to believe." "That's impossible," Webb protested. "Look at their ships. Look at their technology." "I am looking," Chen replied. "And I'm seeing a fleet of 47 ships threatening a single primitive world. Where's the rest of their navy? Where are the thousands of ships it should take to patrol 847 species across the galaxy?" Dr. Vasquez was nodding. "She's right. Something doesn't add up. If they control hundreds of species, they should have millions of ships, but they brought 47 to intimidate us." "Maybe 47 is all they think they need," Webb said. "Maybe," Chen agreed. "Or maybe 47 is all they have." The communication system chimed, indicating an urgent message from Earth. Chen activated the display and President Morrison's face appeared on the screen. The man looked like he had aged 10 years in the past 3 hours. "Admiral Chen," the president said, "I've just finished briefing the Joint Chiefs and our allies. The decision has been made. We're activating Protocol Lazarus." Chen felt her heart skip a beat. Protocol Lazarus was theoretical. It was a plan that existed only in the deepest classified files developed by military strategists who specialized in impossible scenarios. She had helped write parts of it herself back when it was just an academic exercise. "Sir, are you certain? Protocol Lazarus assumes we're facing extinction," Morrison interrupted. "Which we are. You have 7 days, Admiral. Use them." The transmission ended. Chen looked at Webb and Dr. Vasquez, seeing her own thoughts reflected in their faces. Protocol Lazarus wasn't a surrender plan. It wasn't a negotiation strategy. It was a plan for total war against an enemy that couldn't be defeated through conventional means. It was humanity's answer to the question, what do you do when you're facing impossible odds and surrender means the end of everything you care about? The answer, according to Protocol Lazarus, was simple. You fight dirty. Outside the viewport, the alien ships continued their silent watch over Earth, confident in their superiority and certain of humanity's inevitable surrender. They had no idea what they had just awakened. The 7-day countdown had begun. Deep inside Cheyenne Mountain, 2 miles beneath the Colorado Rock, Dr. Elena Vasquez had not slept in 48 hours. Her laboratory looked like a war zone. Computers hummed constantly, processing data from the alien encounter. Test tubes, filled with strange samples, lined every surface. The air smelled of chemicals and fear. "Show me the respiratory analysis again," Elena said to her assistant, Dr. James Park. Park pulled up the holographic display. "The Kalthani breathe a nitrogen-oxygen mix, but they need trace amounts of sulfur compounds. Without it, their nervous system starts shutting down within hours." Elena nodded, making notes on her tablet. Around her, 30 of Earth's best biological warfare specialists worked frantically. Protocol Lazarus had been activated, and they had less than 5 days remaining. "What about the crystal beings?" she asked. "The Etherian Collective," Park corrected. "They're not actually crystal. They're silicon-based life forms with a crystalline exoskeleton. But here's the interesting part. They communicate through harmonic vibrations, disrupt their frequency, and they lose the ability to coordinate." Elena smiled for the first time in 2 days. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "Perfect. How long to weaponize it?" 6 hours for the Kalthani respiratory agent, 12 hours for the harmonic disruptor. 3 levels up, Admiral Chen stood in another classified facility, watching engineers work on something that looked like a normal space freighter. Captain Jake Morrison climbed down from the ship's modified hull, wiping grease from his hands. "How's the cloaking system?" Chen asked. "Better than we hoped," Morrison replied. "The stealth coating we reverse-engineered from that crashed probe works perfectly. We're invisible to their sensors as long as we don't move faster than 10% light speed." Chen looked at the 12 ships in the massive underground hangar. Each one appeared to be a standard human cargo vessel, but appearances were deceiving. The Terran Fury and her sister ships were humanity's secret weapons, built over the past 6 months using technology stolen from various alien crashes and diplomatic gifts. "What about the Reaper mines?" Chen asked. Morrison's expression darkened. "They're ready, but Admiral, are you sure about this? What we're planning, it goes against everything we learned in military academy. Captain, in 6 days, those aliens are going to turn 5.5 billion humans into slaves and put the rest of us in cages. The military academy didn't prepare us for that scenario." Morrison nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. The Reaper mines are loaded and ready." The Reaper mines were humanity's most disturbing weapon. Each one was equipped with advanced hacking software, designed to break into alien computer systems. But instead of destroying the systems, they would broadcast something much worse. Recordings of human warfare throughout history, complete with audio of screaming, dying soldiers. Dr. Vasquez had analyzed the alien psychological profiles. Most council species had evolved as prey animals or peaceful herbivores. They had never experienced warfare like humans practiced it. The sound of human battle cries, the images of humans fighting to the death, the evidence of humanity's creative brutality. It would be like psychological torture to species that saw violence as a last resort. "It's cruel," Morrison had said, when the weapons were first proposed. "Good," Chen had replied. Above ground, the world continued its careful performance. News broadcasts showed politicians preparing surrender documents. Cities held prayer vigils and memorial services. The stock market crashed and recovered and crashed again. To anyone watching from space, humanity looked like a species in the final stages of accepting its fate. But in hidden facilities around the world, a different story was unfolding. In the Australian outback, massive railgun installations were being assembled underground. These weren't meant to shoot at the alien ships in orbit. They were designed to launch projectiles toward specific coordinates in the asteroid belt, where other weapons had been waiting for months. The kinetic bombardment system had been humanity's most ambitious secret project. Over the past year, automated mining ships had been sent to the asteroid belt under the pretense of resource extraction. Instead, they had been converting asteroids into guided missiles. Each one was the size of a small moon and would travel at 30% of light speed when it reached its target. In military bases across Earth, soldiers trained with equipment that officially didn't exist. Powered armor that could survive in space. Weapons that fired condensed plasma. communication systems that used quantum entanglement to avoid detection. But the most important preparations were happening in the minds of Earth's leaders. The psychological warfare component is crucial, said General Patricia Harris, addressing a room full of military commanders through encrypted video link. The aliens expect us to fight like them, clean, efficient, minimizing casualties. They've never encountered a species that treats warfare as an art form. One of the commanders on screen raised his hand. General, what about the rules of war? The Geneva Convention? Harris's expression was cold. Captain, the Geneva Convention applies to human conflicts between human nations. These aliens want to enslave our species. They've already told us they've wiped out 17 civilizations. Do you think they follow rules of war? The room fell silent. Protocol Lazarus assumes we're fighting for the survival of our species. Harris continued. In that scenario, the only rule is victory, by any means necessary. In space, the alien fleet maintained its positions around Earth. Ambassador Zethrix stood on the bridge of the Kalthani flagship, studying reports from his surveillance teams. The humans continue their surrender preparations, reported Subcommander Kyloth. Their governments have drafted the necessary documents. Their military forces are standing down. Several major cities have begun evacuation procedures. Zethrix nodded approvingly. As expected, they understand their situation. What about their space assets? Minimal activity. Their orbital stations are operating at reduced capacity. Their few military vessels have returned to port. No signs of aggressive preparation. Excellent. And their technology assessment? Primitive fusion drives, kinetic projectile weapons, basic communication systems, nothing that poses a threat to Council vessels. Their most advanced ship would be destroyed by our weakest escort. Zethrix felt satisfied. The humans were behaving exactly as predicted. In 4 days, they would formally surrender, and the Council would gain access to one of the most physically capable labor forces they had encountered. Humans were remarkably strong and adaptable. They would make excellent workers once properly conditioned. He failed to notice the small, nearly invisible objects that had attached themselves to the hulls of 17 Council ships. The devices were so small and well camouflaged that they registered as space debris on the alien sensors. Back on Earth, Chen received hourly reports from monitoring stations around the globe. Cloaking systems are holding, reported the communication officer. The aliens haven't detected any of our deployments. Chen nodded. Phase 1 of Protocol Lazarus was complete. Humanity's secret weapons were in position. Phase 2 would begin in 72 hours. Dr. Vasquez appeared on the main screen, her face exhausted but determined. Admiral, the biological agents are ready for deployment. We've also finished the psychological analysis of the Council species. I'm sending you the complete profiles now. Chen reviewed the data on her tablet. The information was disturbing but useful. The Kalthani were apex predators on their homeworld, but they had never developed beyond tribal warfare before joining the Council. The Etherian collective had evolved from herd animals that instinctively fled from aggression. Most of the other species had similar backgrounds. They were intelligent, technologically advanced, but psychologically unprepared for human-style warfare. They've never fought a species like us, Chen realized. That's the key advantage, agreed Dr. Vasquez. They expect rational behavior. They expect their opponents to surrender when faced with overwhelming odds. They expect warfare to follow logical patterns. And we're going to do exactly the opposite. Exactly. Chen looked around the command center at her staff. These men and women had volunteered for a mission that would likely end with their deaths. They knew that even if Protocol Lazarus succeeded, the Council would eventually return with a larger fleet. But they also knew that surrender meant the end of human civilization. Final systems check, Chen ordered. All teams report status. One by one, the reports came in. Biological weapons team, ready for deployment. Stealth fleet, all vessels prepared and in position. Kinetic bombardment system, asteroids are on course and accelerating. Psychological warfare division, Reaper, mines armed and programmed. Ground forces, evacuation of key personnel to underground facilities is complete. Chen took a deep breath. In 72 hours, Humanity would either win its freedom or cease to exist. There was no middle ground. All right, people, she said. We've spent 6 months preparing for this moment. We have one chance to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. Let's make it count. Above them, the alien fleet continued its patient watch, confident in their superiority and completely unaware that they were about to discover why humanity had never been conquered by any force in their violent history. The countdown continued, 68 hours until humanity revealed what they had been hiding. The 7th day arrived with Earth's sun rising over a world that appeared defeated. Television broadcasts showed government officials preparing surrender ceremonies. Crowds gathered in major cities, some praying, others weeping, most simply, waiting for the end of human independence. Ambassador Zethric stood in the main hall of New Geneva Station, surrounded by his delegation and human representatives. The surrender documents lay on a crystalline table that had been teleported from the Kalthani flagship. Everything appeared normal. Before we begin the ceremony, Diplomat Webb said, his voice shaking slightly, humanity would like to present gifts to the Council as a gesture of respect. Zethrix's 4 eyes studied the human carefully. Tribute offerings were traditional, though usually came after surrender, not before. What manner of gifts? Webb gestured, and several human attendants brought forward elegant boxes made of Earth's finest materials. Cultural artifacts from our species. Art, music, literature. We thought the Council might appreciate learning about human civilization before it changes. The alien delegates examined the gifts with interest. The boxes contained holographic displays of human art, music players with selections from Earth's greatest composers, and tablets loaded with literature from every human culture. Each gift was beautiful, carefully crafted, and completely harmless, or, so it appeared. Zethrix accepted his gift personally, a wooden music box carved from ancient oak that played Mozart's Requiem. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, and the craftsmanship was impressive for such a primitive species. Your artisans show skill, Zethrix acknowledged. These will make acceptable additions to the Council's cultural archives. What Zethrix didn't know was that each gift contained microscopic biological agents specifically designed by Dr. Vasquez to target the respiratory systems of each alien species. The agents were dormant and undetectable, sealed within the seemingly solid construction of each artifact. They would remain harmless until exposed to specific atmospheric conditions, the exact atmospheric conditions found aboard Council ships. The ceremony proceeded. Webb read the surrender terms aloud, his voice carrying across live broadcast to every human settlement. 5.5 billion people would be relocated within 6 months. Earth's resources would be strip-mined. The remaining population would be moved to designated preservation zones. Do the people of Earth accept these terms? Zethrix asked formally. Before Webb could answer, Admiral Chen's voice cut through the silence. No, we do not. Every alien in the room turned to stare at her. Zethrix's expression shifted from surprise to anger. Admiral Chen, this is most irregular. Your government has already agreed to these terms. My government agreed to hear your terms, Chen corrected. We've heard them. Our answer is no. The crystal being known as high resonator Thixin made a sound like breaking glass. This is unacceptable. You cannot refuse. You have seen our power. Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Yes, we have. And now, you're going to see ours. She pressed a small device on her wrist. Across the solar system, dozens of systems activated simultaneously. The first phase began aboard the Council ships themselves. The gifts that had been distributed to various alien dignitaries over the past week began releasing their deadly cargo. The wooden music box in Zethrix's quarters started emitting microscopic spores designed to target Kalthani neural pathways. Within minutes, every Kalthani aboard the flagship would begin experiencing system failures as their enhanced nervous systems were attacked by engineered viruses. But the biological agents weren't meant to kill. They were meant to incapacitate and terrify. Captain Morrison's voice crackled over Chen's communication device. Reaper mines are active, broadcasting on all Council frequencies. Across the alien fleet, the small devices that had attached themselves to Council ships weeks earlier came online. But instead of explosions, they began broadcasting something far more disturbing: the sounds of human warfare throughout history. 2. Bridge of the Calthani flagship suddenly filled with the sounds of human soldiers charging into battle at Gettysburg, screaming war cries that made the aliens' blood freeze. The noise was followed by recordings from World War II, the sound of machine guns, artillery, and human voices laughing as they fought. But worse than the sounds were the images. The Reaper mines projected holographic displays showing human warfare in graphic detail. Humans fighting with knives when they ran out of bullets. Humans continuing to fight with broken bones and severe injuries. Humans who smiled while killing their enemies. The psychological impact on the Council crews was immediate and devastating. The Etherian collective beings began resonating in panic frequencies, their crystalline bodies cracking under stress. The slug-like gastropod communion started secreting fear pheromones so strongly that their ship's life support systems began failing. High resonator, Thixon's harmonic speech became a chaotic mess of discordant tones. "What is this? What are they doing?" "They're showing us who they really are," Sethrix whispered, watching in horror as holographic humans used flamethrowers against enemy positions while laughing. But the real horror was yet to come. Deep in the Yai asteroid belt, massive objects that had been disguised as mining operations for months suddenly revealed their true purpose. The asteroids, each the size of a city, began accelerating toward specific coordinates at incredible speeds. "Kinetic bombardment system is active," reported the voice from Earth's command center. "Impact in 17 minutes. The Council fleet's sensors detected the approaching asteroids, but the aliens couldn't understand what they were seeing. The objects were traveling at 30% of light speed, faster than anything the Council had ever seen except for their own fastest warships. "Those are just rocks," Sub-Commander Kyloth reported from the Calthani flagship, his voice slurred from the biological agent affecting his system. "Large rocks, but still just rocks." "Rocks traveling at 0.3 C, Sethrix replied, his own speech becoming labored. "Calculate impact force." The computer's response was terrifying. Each asteroid carried the kinetic energy of a small star. The Council's most heavily shielded installations would be vaporized instantly. But the targets weren't the fleet around Earth. The asteroids were aimed at Council worlds 20 light-years away, worlds whose locations had been carefully noted during diplomatic exchanges over the past months. "Impossible." Thixon's broken harmonics conveyed desperation. How did they accelerate solid matter to such velocities? The answer came from Chen's broadcast, which was now being transmitted to every Council ship and every Council world. "We've been planning this since the day you arrived. Did you think we spent the past week crying and surrendering? We spent it preparing to destroy you." The third phase began as Morrison's stealth fleet decloaked around the Council vessels. The 12 ships that appeared were unlike anything the aliens had seen. They were covered in weapons that shouldn't exist on human vessels, powered by energy systems that human technology couldn't produce. "This is impossible." Sethrix struggled to speak as the biological agent continued affecting his nervous system. "Your technology is primitive. Your ships are slow." "Our public technology is primitive," Chen corrected. "The ships you're looking at were built using technology we've been stealing from you for the past 5 years. Every crashed probe, every diplomatic gift, every piece of equipment you thought was too advanced for us to understand. We reverse-engineered all of it. The stealth ships opened fire, but not with conventional weapons. Instead, they deployed something the Council had never encountered. Weapons that hacked into enemy computer systems and took control of ship functions. Within minutes, several Council vessels found their own weapons turning on their sister ships. Life support systems began cycling randomly. Artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Navigation systems started plotting courses toward the nearest star. But the most disturbing part was the audio that accompanied each system hack. Human voices, speaking in calm, professional tones, explained exactly how each system was being compromised and why the aliens couldn't stop it. "Your bio-neural computers are fascinating," one voice explained as a Council cruiser's weapon system fired on its own flagship. "We've learned so much from studying them. For instance, did you know that they respond to certain organic compounds the same way biological nervous systems do? We call those compounds neurotoxins. Across the council, fleet, panic spread like wildfire. These humans weren't fighting like any species the council had ever encountered. They were fighting like demons, coordinated, ruthless, and apparently enjoying the destruction they were causing. Surrender! Thixon's broken harmonics shrieked. We surrender. Call off your attack. Chen's response was broadcast on all frequencies. You told us about 17 species that chose to fight you. You said none of them exist today. Did any of them surrender after you demonstrated your power? Silence filled the communication channels. That's what I thought, Chen continued. You don't accept surrenders. You destroy civilizations. So we're going to destroy yours first. The kinetic bombardments reached their targets. Across 20 light-years, 3 major council worlds watched in horror as city-sized asteroids slammed into their surfaces at unimaginable speeds. The impacts were visible from neighboring star systems. Brief. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in the organization's 10,000-year history. Representatives from 847 species filled the massive chamber, but instead of the usual dignified discussions, the hall echoed with sounds of panic, fear, and barely controlled hysteria. Ambassador Zethrix was the sole surviving member of the original Earth delegation. He sat in a medical support chair, his nervous system still recovering from the biological agent the humans had deployed. His forearms trembled uncontrollably, and his speech was slurred. But he was alive, which made him one of the lucky ones. Hi. Counselor Murthan of the Ethereal Conclave called the session to order. The ancient being was over 3,000 years old and had guided the council through countless crises. But today, even her voice shook with uncertainty. We are gathered, Murthan began, her telepathic words reaching every mind in the chamber, to discuss the incident involving the species known as humanity. Incident. The word felt inadequate for what had happened. In less than 1 hour, a single primitive species had shattered the Council's military power, destroyed 3 major worlds, and demonstrated technological capabilities that shouldn't have been possible. They attacked without warning, reported Admiral Vex Thule of the Reptilian Coalition, his scaled hide showing stress patterns. Our sensors detected no preparations. Our intelligence indicated they were surrendering. They were never surrendering. Zethrix managed to say, his words barely understandable. It was all deception. From the moment we made contact, they were planning this. The chamber erupted in sounds of distress. The crystal-like Etherian representatives began resonating in frequencies that made the walls vibrate. Several of the Yao, gaseous nebula collective delegates started changing colors rapidly, their forms flickering between states of matter. Impossible, declared High Administrator Kelnos of the Bureaucratic Union. No species has ever successfully hidden military preparations from Council surveillance. Our monitoring systems are perfect. Apparently not, came a voice from the back of the chamber. Commander Zilmoth of the Predator caste stood slowly, his 12 legs clicking on the floor. As one of the few military species in the Council, his opinion carried weight. I've reviewed the attack data. The humans didn't hide their preparations. They made us think we were seeing something else. He activated a holographic display showing the human asteroid mining operations. We observed these activities for months. We classified them as resource extraction. They were actually weapons placement. The hologram shifted to show human ship movements. We monitored their fleet exercises. We thought they were primitive, training maneuvers. They were actually practicing coordinated attacks. More images appeared. Human diplomatic gifts, cultural exchanges, scientific cooperation requests. Each activity that the Council had interpreted as signs of submission had actually been intelligence gathering or weapons deployment. They studied us, Zilmoth concluded. Every meeting, every exchange, every piece of technology we shared, they were learning our weaknesses. High Counselor Murthan's mental voice carried deep concern. But their technology is primitive. Their fastest ships are slower than our cargo vessels. Their weapons are crude, kinetic projectiles. Their public technology is primitive, Zilmoth corrected. What they used against us was far more advanced. Those stealth ships used energy systems beyond our current understanding. Their biological weapons were precisely tailored to our specific physiologies. Their computer viruses adapted to our security systems in real time. A new voice interrupted the discussion. Subdirector Thylex of the Scientific Consortium had been analyzing the attack data for hours. I have disturbing news regarding their technological capabilities. The chamber fell silent. The energy signatures from their weapons don't match any known technology in Council databases. The materials used in their ships show manufacturing techniques we've never encountered. Most significantly, their kinetic bombardment system achieved velocities that should be impossible with their stated technology level. Thylex paused, his tentacles writhing with nervousness. Colleagues, I believe the humans have been technologically advanced for far longer than they revealed to us. What we saw was not a primitive species suddenly developing superior weapons. It was an advanced civilization that chose to appear primitive. The implications of this statement sent waves of terror through the assembled representatives. Several species had delegation members faint or enter shock states. You're suggesting, Murthan said slowly, that they were never inferior to us? I'm suggesting they may be superior to us, Thylex replied. Consider the evidence. They successfully deceived our best intelligence analysts for months. They developed weapons specifically designed to exploit our psychological weaknesses. They demonstrated precision targeting across 20 light-years, while simultaneously coordinating attacks on multiple fronts. Ambassador Zethrix made a sound that might have been laughter, though it could also have been crying. The biological agents they used on us, they weren't designed to kill. They were designed to incapacitate and terrify. They could have killed us all within minutes, but they chose not to. This revelation sparked new discussions throughout the chamber. If the humans could have eliminated the Council delegation entirely, why hadn't they? Commander Zilmoth had the answer, and it chilled everyone present. Because they wanted witnesses. They wanted us to return and report what happened. They wanted the Council to know exactly what they're capable of. The chamber's main display activated, showing recent intelligence reports from across Council space. The news was devastating. Over 200 species had already declared neutrality and begun withdrawing from Council territories. The Mercantile Federation, which controlled trade routes for half the galaxy, had suspended all military cooperation agreements. The Philosophical Union had recalled their fleets to defensive positions around their homeworlds. They're abandoning us, reported Intelligence Director Mordeth. Species that have been loyal to the Council for thousands of years are refusing to participate in any response to the human threat. Threat? Murthan questioned. The humans attacked us because we threatened them first. They attacked 3 of our core worlds, Admiral Vexthul reminded her. That's an act of war against the entire Council. Is it? Commander Zilmoth asked. Or is it a demonstration? Look at the targeting data again. The holographic display showed detailed analysis of the kinetic bombardments. Each asteroid had struck with surgical precision, destroying military installations, government facilities, and strategic infrastructure. But population centers had been avoided entirely. Military targets only, Zilmoth observed. They could have wiped out 3 entire planets. Instead, they crippled our ability to coordinate a response while leaving civilian populations untouched. Subdirector Thylex added more disturbing information. Our casualty reports show fewer than 10,000 deaths across all 3 worlds. For attacks of that magnitude, we should be counting casualties in the billions. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The humans had demonstrated the ability to destroy Council civilization, but they had chosen restraint. What do they want? Murthan asked. The answer came from an unexpected source. The chamber's communication system activated, carrying a transmission from Earth. Admiral Chen's face appeared on every screen in the hall. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Chen began, her voice calm and professional. You are probably wondering about our intentions following recent events. Every representative in the chamber focused entirely on the transmission. This was the first official communication from humanity since the attacks. Let me be clear, Chen continued. We do not seek conquest. We do not desire to rule over other species. We simply want to exist peacefully without threat of enslavement or extinction. She paused, letting her words sink in. However, your organization has a history of destroying species that refuse to submit to your authority. 17 civilizations have been eliminated for the crime of wanting to remain free. This is unacceptable. The display behind Chen changed to show data that made several council members gasp in recognition. Complete files on the 17 extinct species, including battle records, surrender attempts, and final communications before their worlds were sterilized. We know about the Korthani, who fought for 47 years before you burned their homeworld. We know about the Zephyrin Collective, who tried to surrender 6 times but were destroyed anyway, because you wanted their territory. We know about all of them. Chen's expression remained calm, but her words carried an edge of cold fury. You told us that none of the resistant species exist today. You were wrong. They do exist. In our archives, in our historical records, and in our memory. We remember civilizations that the galaxy has forgotten. The transmission shifted to show human, cities thriving and peaceful, children playing in parks, scientists working in laboratories, artists creating beautiful works of culture. This is what you threatened to destroy, Chen said. Our families, our children, our civilization. Did you really think we would let that happen? The display changed again, showing technical readouts of weapon systems and military installations that the Council didn't know existed. 3 months after what historians would later call the 7-Day War, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a very different galactic council. The massive chamber that had once hosted 847 species now held representatives from fewer than 600. The others had withdrawn from council space entirely, choosing isolation over the risk of attracting humanity's attention. The surviving delegates looked like survivors of a terrible disaster. Many showed signs of stress-related illnesses. The Etherian collective representatives had developed permanent stress fractures in their crystalline structures. Several of the more nervous species wore protective equipment, as if preparing for another attack at any moment. High Counselor Murthan, now looking far older than her 3,000 years, called the session to order with a trembling telepathic voice. We are gathered to discuss terms of coexistence with the human species. The word coexistence was carefully chosen. No one in the chamber was willing to use terms like negotiation or treaty anymore. Those words implied equality between parties. What was happening today was closer to a surrender ceremony. Ambassador Zethrix, still recovering from the biological agents but alive, served as the primary liaison. His role had changed dramatically from his original mission to Earth. Instead of demanding humanity's submission, he was now tasked with ensuring that humanity didn't decide to finish what they had started. The human delegation has arrived, he announced, his voice still carrying traces of the neurological damage from 3 months ago. The chamber doors opened, and Admiral Chen entered with a small group of human representatives. Unlike their first encounter, the humans now walked with the confidence of a species that had proven itself capable of destroying civilizations. They wore formal diplomatic uniforms, but everyone in the chamber knew these people were warriors who had orchestrated the most devastating military defeat in galactic history. Chen approached the central podium where speakers traditionally addressed the council. She looked around the chamber, noting the empty seats where representatives of dozens of species used to sit. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the future relationship between humanity and your organization. The formal politeness of her words didn't hide the underlying message. This wasn't a request. Humanity was here because they chose to be, not because they needed the Council's permission. High Counselor Murthan spoke directly into Chen's mind using telepathy. Admiral Chen, the Council has prepared terms for peaceful coexistence between our civilizations. I'm listening, Chen replied aloud. making it clear that any discussions would be public and recorded. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing the proposed agreement. As Chen read through the terms, several council members watched her face for any reaction. The terms were generous to the point of desperation, complete recognition of human sovereignty over their claimed territories, including 17 star systems that had previously been designated for council expansion, most favored trading status for all human commercial activities, access to council databases containing scientific and technological information, permanent seats on all major council committees with full voting rights. But the most telling term was the last one, a formal agreement that the council would never again attempt to relocate, control, or threaten human populations. Chen finished reading and looked up at the assembled representatives. These terms are acceptable as a starting point. The phrase starting point sent waves of anxiety through the chamber. If these generous terms were just the beginning, what would the final agreement look like? However, Chen continued, humanity has additional requirements. She activated her own holographic display, showing information that made several council members gasp in horror. The display showed detailed intelligence files on every major council military installation, complete, with defensive capabilities, personnel numbers, and strategic weaknesses. For the past 3 months, we've been conducting comprehensive surveillance of council operations, Chen explained calmly. We know the location of every military base, every weapons development facility, and every strategic resource depot in council space. Commander Zilmoth, one of the few military strategists in the chamber, understood the implications immediately. You've been preparing for a full-scale war. We've been preparing for the possibility that the council might decide to seek revenge for our defensive actions, Chen corrected. Our intelligence suggests that several council species have been advocating for a massive retaliation strike against Earth. This was true. In the weeks following the attacks, various council members had proposed everything from complete blockades of human space to the deployment of planet-killing weapons. All such proposals had been quietly shelved, after military analysis showed they would likely result in humanity destroying dozens of council worlds in response. Our additional terms are simple, Chen continued. First, the council will provide complete intelligence sharing regarding any military activities within 50 light-years of human space. Second, the council will establish formal diplomatic relations with each human colony world individually, not just with Earth. Third, the council will provide reparations for the psychological trauma inflicted on humanity during your initial contact. The last term was particularly clever. By demanding reparations for trauma, humanity was formally establishing that the council had been the aggressor in their original encounter. This would make it much harder for council members to justify future hostile actions. But Chen wasn't finished. Finally, the council will acknowledge that its historical policy of forced species relocation constitutes a crime against galactic civilization and will formally apologize to the families of all extinct species. The chamber erupted in sounds of distress. What Chen was demanding was nothing less than a fundamental change in how the council operated. For 10,000 years, forced relocation had been accepted policy. To declare it criminal would undermine the legal basis for the council's expansion across the galaxy. High Counselor Murthan struggled to maintain her composure. Admiral Chen, these demands would require us to restructure our entire governmental system. Yes, Chen replied simply. They would. Ambassador Zethrix managed to speak despite his ongoing recovery. And if the council refuses these terms? Chen's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Ambassador, you've seen what humanity is capable of when we're feeling defensive. Do you really want to find out what we're capable of when we're feeling aggressive? She gestured to her holographic display, which now showed star charts of council space with potential target sites marked in red. There were thousands of them. The weapon systems you witnessed 3 months ago represent approximately 15% of humanity's current military capability, Chen continued. We've been very careful to demonstrate only the minimum force necessary to ensure our survival. Sub-Director Thylex, The scientific consortium representative who had been analyzing human technology made a sound that might have been crying. 15%? Approximately, Chen confirmed. Our kinetic bombardment system has been expanded to cover every major strategic target in Council space. Our biological warfare division has developed agents specifically designed for the physiology of every Council species. Our cyber warfare capabilities can now take control of any system using Council standard technology. She paused to let this information sink in. But more importantly, we've shared our defensive innovations with 17 other species that the Council has threatened with relocation over the past century. They've all expressed interest in learning how to protect themselves from forced submission. This revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. If humanity was sharing their military technology with other species, the balance of power in the galaxy could shift dramatically. The Council's expansion would become impossible if every threatened species had access to human-level defensive capabilities. You're destabilizing the entire galactic order, Murthan accused. We're defending civilization from an organization that has destroyed 17 species and threatened hundreds more, Chen corrected. The Council has had 10,000 years to prove that it can govern fairly. Your treatment of the extinct species and your initial approach to humanity suggests that experiment has failed. Chen activated a new display showing communications from across the galaxy. Dozens of species had sent messages of support for humanity's actions. Many others had requested defensive alliances or technology-sharing agreements. The galaxy is changing, Chen observed. Species that have lived in fear of forced relocation for centuries are realizing they don't have to accept that fate. The age of Council dominance through intimidation is ending. Commander Zilmoth stood slowly, his 12 legs clicking on the floor. What you're proposing would mean the end of the Council as we know it. Perhaps, Chen agreed. But it would also mean the end of involuntary species extinctions. Personally, I think that's a fair trade. High Counselor Murthan closed her ancient eyes and reached out telepathically to every representative in the chamber. The silent conference lasted several minutes, during which Chen waited patiently,